Welcome to a new episode of the brand called You. Today I have a millennial, an entrepreneur, a horse rider, Saahil Nandrajog. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. Sahil is a competitive horse rider. He's done this nationally and internationally. He's an entrepreneur and he is the founder of a well known fashion brand called Tiger Marron. And he's also the COO of Xoot Access Technology, which handles electronic health records. So, Sahil, let's start with horses. Horses have been a part of your life from the time you were a child. And you spoke about checking and knowing your tack. Help me understand, and for all our listeners, what is tack?
So, Uncle, tack is the accessories that you put on a horse, which involves the saddle, the bridle, which is what you put on the face of the horse. The reins is what you use as a connection between your hand to the horse's mouth. So, cumulatively, it comes under the heading of tack. So it's really important to know your tack while you're competing, because at times you have instances when you're show jumping and it's a high impact sport. So your force per unit area at certain times can become so prominent that your tack actually snaps. That's happened to me a couple of times, and that costs you your competition. Because this is an actionality that initially you don't have any control on. It's quite frustrating. So when I was competing more heavily, I started to understand what is good tack. Of course, that was cursory and superficial understanding, but I could kind of make out
So,
touch and feel.
what goes into riding professionally, or rather in a competitive state? How do you prepare yourself for that?
So, Uncle, is quite interesting because your main teammate is a being that you can't verbally communicate with. But have you? I don't know, Uncle. Have you seen the movie Avatar?
Yeah.
There's one instance in the movie where I guess the actor at that time, right? He connects his hair to the hair of the bird.
Correct.
And there's this formation and this synchronization that takes place. And that's what I've always tried for.
Okay.
You sit on and then you just judge how your horse is. You feel him out. How his ears are twitching. Horses have muscles all over their body. Like what's his tail angle? How is he feeling? What is his eye saying? So you start developing a different type of understanding. It's latent. It's a latent understanding, and when you really harness that understanding, it's actually you can communicate significantly better than actually verbal communication.
And is it also true that if you are with the same horse for a longer period of time, he or she begins to understand you better?
Oh, completely. It's like, Uncle, you're driving your own car. Like, many men have a problem with other people touching their car. I'm significantly overprotective about my horse, more than even like my car. So it's like an adjustment. It's almost like riding after you compete and, working with the animal for a couple of years. It's like you're riding an electronic machine. Because little subtle touches is a very prominent command.
And
So-
what is involved in being able to maintain a horse in today's day and age?
Oh, it's a full-time job. Just with the fact that they eat about 6 to 7 kilos of food on average. And they're an athlete. You have to train like an athlete. You train yourself like an athlete, and even your partner, in this case, which is a horse, like an athlete. So he has a 4-hour spa treatment every day.
Wow.
Brushing, shampooing. In the winter, maybe not. Then just washing of the legs, etc. On an average, they have to have at least 2 baths a day. You got to check you got to check them for dental hygiene, the ears, miscellaneous spots here and there. You have to massage them because the muscles play, of course, a
Like
very,
human
very,
beings,
very
yeah.
important role.
Yeah.
And you have to keep them happy. It's very important to have your horse in a good mood. You want them to be a little spirited. When they're too spirited, they cause you certain damages.
Yeah.
But I think I've always liked channelizing energy as opposed to creating energy. And what I mean by that is I like horses that are a little I guess, naughty and spirited, as opposed to horses that are calm, because in calm horses you have to create impulsion, as opposed to channelizing impulsion and energy in more
Very
spirited
interesting.
animals.
So let's talk now about your learnings from horses into the other animal in your life, which is tiger Marron.
Oh, right, of course.
That's now beginning to get accepted as a very, very well known fashion accessory
Thank
or
you.
fashion brand.
Yeah, we're working hard, and touch wood, God is kind.
So tell us about the tiger in your life.
So how riding kind of helped me out with that was, Uncle, it really learned tenacity. I trained with Roshan Sodi and Colonel Sandeep Dewan, both people coming from an army background, and no matter if you fall off or whatever happens, you have to get back on the horse.
Correct.
And when I was competing at the nationals, my trainer told me that when there's an obstacle in your life, there's only one way to get past it, and that's over it. I made that my life motto, that you just have to keep gunning, and that's what we did with Tiger. So I did not study fashion. I was actually a economics graduate. I did a concentration in cognition. But I think I had a flair for it. I like to believe, Uncle, I have swag, and I wanted to see what I could do with that. I believe I got inspired for Tiger Marron when I was in Madrid, Spain. It's also a fashion capital. However, I think I put that in the back burner at that time, and I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers and hit the corporate world. When opportunities opened up there, I had to make a decision, which was that if I can't take these opportunities, I will be in the corporate world. But there was some, little bit of a tickle somewhere, some bigger calling that was just kind of subconsciously directing me towards becoming an entrepreneur. And then I took the jump for Tiger Marron.
So what was behind the name? How did you select Tiger Marron as the name?
So my nickname is Tiger, and Marron in Spanish means brown.
I see.
So I was decently fluent in Spanish a couple of years ago when I was in Spain. Of course, now I haven't practiced, but I really wanted to get a Spanish touch to it.
Wonderful. And you're currently focusing primarily on leather, or do you have other products?
Well, we do fabric and leather. So we've been, by we, I mean my parents have been manufacturers for the last 30 years. They are into home furnishings, so not accessories, but home furnishings. And I actually found out that my dad started out with leather when he was younger than me. Which was a recent learning. So I guess it was somewhere there in the bloodline. But we worked for many global brands, and I just realized that there is a gap in the market where people can get the same quality of design and same quality of actual quality. They can get the same design aesthetic and the same quality as some of the high-end brands. But people just don't know what's getting manufactured 20 kilometers away from their house.
That's true. And you position the brand as one that has style and precision.
Absolutely.
So what does this mean? First, style and precision in a brand with fashion, and second, how do you embody these values in Tiger Marron products? So
style and design, Uncle, I think they go hand in hand. I'm using them interchangeably right now. I would say when I talk about style, because we get a lot of spec sheets and we've been working with many big fashion houses since a long time. And before I actually started Tiger Marron as a brand, I too worked as a manufacturer for many high-end brands. I'm under client confidentiality, so I can't name them. Absolutely. But we're talking about all the global brands that are very prominent and people are purchasing from. Absolutely. So I was always working with the design team. Sometimes I designed for them, different type of collaborations, spec sheets, etc. Sketches, computer accelerated designs, etc. So got a really good understanding of the style and design that today's generation and just a general environmental aesthetic is. So that's the design aspect. The precision is how every stitch makes a difference, how your leather stumbled, how it goes into its various processes, how it's aged if you want a antique finish, how it's how it weathers. If you want it to be a little bit more durable, what type of patents are you putting on it to give it that durability? So that's what comes into the precision.
So
Aspect of
you
it.
are in a very very high end fashion space, and fashion changes all the time.
Yeah.
How do you stay ahead of that?
You have to be quick on your feet. You have to be quite versatile. That's one thing I really try to make my company, both my companies, may it be the medical or
And I'm going to
Tiger
come to
Marron.
to Zoot as
we
well.
we're trying to be really agile. I think companies really suffer from red tapeism, and as an owner, as a CEO, you become the bottleneck. And I've always tried to make sure that I don't become bottleneck. So we try to stay light so we can fight quick and make quick decisions. And you're very true. Fashion is ever changing, but also, Uncle, I would like to say like some of the good brands really create their market. It's like when Apple came in, you didn't really know that you needed an iPhone. Like the need was created. So one of the questions I'm really hit with is when saying all these solid claims, like could you actually get it at the price points that I'm selling them at? And the answer is yes. And because we're doing that, we get a little bit of a scope to kind of create our own fashion. Of course, we have to be in tune with the trends,
Correct.
the colors, what people are going for, but that gives us just a little bit of an edge to kind of have a say in the market, and not only have the market say to us.
And how do you, there are a lot of people in this business.
Right.
How do you differentiate yourself? Is it because of your own values of style and precision, or do you do something differently?
Both. So I would say maybe the three major points. I would say one is the price, right? Let's start with that, is because economics play a very big role always.
Correct.
How we offer the prices is by two ways, right? We have complete control on our supply chain. Now you hear Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all these guys really spending so
Correct.
much time on their supply chain. There's so much emphasis in supply chain, and I understand why. That really guarantees you the quality. And by eliminating all the middlemen, and by really owning your supply chain, you hit the price. By having the experience of working with different fashion houses and just having your ear to the ground, and then by the end of the fact of being in the same space and environment, you create the design. Very soon, I'm actually going to be changing my design aesthetic to something a bit more haute couture. I won't say change. I would say it's a transition. I don't want it to be a quick snap that we were here, now we're here, but we want to kind of have a good golf swing. You see a nice follow through, which is like, hey, Tiger Mom was doing this, but now they're getting into a little bit of a different space, while keeping some of the previous aesthetic as well. So that's how we kind of differentiate between price and design. And of course, the third aspect would be experience. We are lucky that we've been manufacturers in about 30 years. I'm lucky that before I started Tiger Marron, I worked with some of the bigger brands. So getting to know how they function, and just having a ear to the ground and learning on the go is what we offer.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Saahil, let's move to your second company, which is in a completely different area.
Yeah.
And I like to look at you as with the different avatars, from horses to Tiger Marron to your third avatar, which is Xoot Access. Am I getting the pronunciation
Right. Absolutely. You're correct.
So, Xoot Access Tech, tell us about this business?
So, it's quite an interesting story, Uncle. So, my mom's brother came up to me, my uncle, and he said that I need someone such as yourself to help me out. And at that time, I really did not know what I was getting into, but the company needed a lot of structure. There were many things that were going haywire, and I said, okay, I'm going to take this project up. And it was quite challenging, is because I was working in two different geographical locations.
Correct.
Working 2 different time shifts, because we also have a night shift. But most importantly, I was in a completely different domain, right? But although it was taxing, it's very energizing. What Xoot does is we are in 2 verticals, EHR, electronic health record, and billing. Things work quite differently in US healthcare as compared to in Indian healthcare, right? So we are a platform which is if I could say, like, we're a really good Facebook that takes care of the whole circle,
Okay.
in the medical field. That means that we take care of the doctor aspect of things, the patient aspects of things, the third party vendor aspect of things. So when a doctor is talking to a patient, he's using my platform. When the patient is filling in information and data, he or she is using my platform. The doctor is talking to RX, aka prescription companies, through my platform. And we have cool things put in, like, we have like a scribble pad and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we also still call it, even though we're working with software, we call it developing a product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And this is used by individual consumers, or is it with doctors?
So
So, for example, if I'm living in America,
yeah,
will I have access to my own data?
you can.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. But I mean, the data is stored with the doctor,
Okay.
right? But if it's not an app. It's actually a URL, so you can just log on to it anywhere
I
that you
see.
want. So it's quite easy to access that way.
Okay. And electronic health records are becoming a very, very large business all over the world
Yeah.
with just the sheer amount of data. But two questions for you on that. One
Sure.
is the amount of data that you're collecting must be huge. So
Yes.
storage of that
Yeah,
data.
we have to have our own individual servers. Our storage.
A lot of data on the cloud.
Yeah, we have our own
probably.
cloud. Yeah.
And second,
Actually, cloud is big business now. We do pull in a decent amount of revenue by kind of having things stored now on cloud.
And second is there's a lot of possibility to do analytics with all this. I'm not sure if the US laws allow you to.
No, they don't.
They don't.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
It helps us to kind of understand what a doctor might want in the future, what a patient might need. But unfortunately, we can't
You
work
can't
with
use
that.
the data.
Yeah, we can't give it's confidential information.
So the next question would then be that with such diverse businesses, how do you manage your time? I mean, switching from fashion to technology and back to fashion.
I think I've created switches now, bro.
Okay.
But I'm quite blessed being a high energy individual, and as I said, like sometimes get taxing.
Yeah.
But it's also, these two things are components that actually energize me as well. I kind of like just having to shift really quick between two different things. But I've noticed that there's certain core business functions that if you really focus on with a logical mind, you do not necessarily require prerequisite information. Like when I joined the company, the employees were like, okay, fine, we have a new boss, let's see how much he knows, he doesn't know. And at that time, I did not know too much. So like my horses, they would try and throw me off. But, I very linearly focused on how to get from point A to point B. For example, there was a time where one of my team leads was talking about, I told him to work on some data, and he's like, oh, we can't work on it right now because you have to create a bridge and, yada, yada, yada. So he said this a couple of times, and he was making this task seem like a really big task. So I said, okay, fine. And I spent some time in my cabin for 5 minutes to just kind of go through the sentences he has said. And I called him back and I said, okay, fine. So you have to create a bridge, right? Is that a link? That's a pathway, right? So creating a pathway cannot be a complicated task with respect to like knowledge. It might be complicated and time intensive. That's what it is. He's like, yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so I'm like, fine, let's plan out your day and let's make a priority list. So suddenly, it was not a technical challenge for me anymore. It was a challenge of time management.
Terrific.
So you kind of just have to not let your employees take you for a ride and be very sure on the words and how to get from point A to point B. And if you really focus on that and you have a sound and logical mind, you're enthusiastic and passionate about it, I do feel you figured out a solution.
Wonderful. So one more question before I move to a few questions for you personally. What have horses taught you as an individual that you have brought to your business?
3 or 4 things, Uncle. I would first say patience. 2, instinct. 3, tenacity.
Okay.
4, latent understanding. And 5 would be equilibrium.
Wonderful.
You really have to stay balanced while you're going over a jump, while you're making a business deal happen, while you're just going through your general, software development cycle, or you want to have a production mapping, like it's kind of the same world where you're doing different things with little tinkering. So these 5 things is something that, riding horses has really taught me.
Very well said. So let's talk a little bit about your journey as a startup entrepreneur.
Sure.
And I'm sure you've got lots of friends who are doing startups, etc.
Yeah.
From your perspective, what are some of the mistakes a lot of startup entrepreneurs make?
So there are two type of people, and you have to shift between this. There's no correct way of going ahead of this, right? And I'm quoting an author. I don't really remember what exactly she said, but she was talking about the 2 type of people. There's one type of person who's going to say, hey, I want a mango orchard, I want an apple orchard, right? And there's another type of person who's going to say, hey, I have an orchard, let's see what grows in it. And as an entrepreneur, you have to kind of switch between both those things.
Very well said.
Because sometimes you have to be kind of linear and be like, listen, this is the task we have to achieve. We have 6 months to do it. These are the obstacles that we can think about right now. Boom, boom, boom. This is going to be done on this date. But there are going to be other times where you're going to be like, okay, let's just kind of be a little, maybe if I could use the word nonchalant, focused but nonchalant. And sometimes it's good to be nonchalant is because you don't have the complete knowledge to basically be that gung-ho. At that time, you want to play a little bit and see what you can do and what result that will give. And you always have to switch between both those things. So sometimes entrepreneurs are like, hey, let's just wing it. And sometimes entrepreneurs are too gung-ho. That's when I think, the word equilibrium comes in, where you have to move between both those aspects.
Very good. So, question on scaling up. You're now scaling up Tiger Marron, and one of the biggest challenges most entrepreneurs face is scaling up.
Absolutely.
At what stage do you think an entrepreneur should be ready to start scaling up?
So it's a calculated risk, uncle. And at the end of the day, you are dealing with the probability of success and failure. So the time where you really think that calculated risk is going to has a higher probability of leading to a positive outcome is the time when you should scale up.
Okay.
A little bit of trusting your instinct.
Agree. So a few more questions for you personally. Who are the people who have had an influence on your life, and how have they mentored you?
The 2 most important people, I would say, are my parents. They have been relentless in dealing with me. With this, I would say that my father chasing me to eat my almonds, my mother chasing me to eat my palak. How this helped out when I was young and quite carefree was it gave me the nutrients to actually perform. By relentlessly making me, if I wasn't studying, by getting me tuitions, they just never gave up on me, and they always trusted me. And I don't know how they manage this. I would really want to learn it because I think it's a great technique. But they taught me responsibility, by giving me a lot of love. That's dangerous. Because, as a child, you can always take that for granted. And I'm sure I did.
Well, credit goes to you that you didn't misuse it.
But, they were just such wonderful individuals that I could be naughty, but I could never be bad. And I really, really have to thank them because they played a very big and still continue to play a very big role in who I am.
Sure. So, Saahil, tell me, what would be 3 adjectives that define you?
I would say tenacious, balanced, and positive.
Okay.
Faithful.
That's a. I've heard tenacious from a lot of people, but positive is something that I've not generally heard.
Yeah, you kind of have to wake up in the morning and smile, and see, no matter how good or bad the previous day has been, you continue with a good spirit.
Yeah. So tell me, when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Quite recently. I just finished 2 fashion shows, but the first fashion show that I did, which was I think in October was the first fashion show I got into. It was in Bombay with the Bombay Times Fashion Week. So that was my first time actually being in a fashion show. That was quite interesting. A lot of learning.
Moving around with all the glitterati.
Oh yeah, it was cool to see a different side of the brand world. Which is more glamorous. But there's a lot of stuff that happens backstage that is non-glamorous, only to basically bring out that glamour on stage. And it was a very, very enthralling experience.
Wonderful. So one more question, and I ask this from every guest,
please,
which is that tell me your learning from some of the mistakes you have made.
So going back to the orchard analogy I was on to draw, that was something that was quite important. Sometimes you over prepare, and over preparation always involves money and time.
Yeah.
You really have to balance that out. It's kind of hard to say how exactly, and every situation has a different type of balancing out that you have to do. But I would just say you have to really balance out being, over prepared. Another thing is that, I feel like the two types of entrepreneurs that really get into business. There's one type of entrepreneur who does not have too many funds and has a passion. And there's another type of entrepreneur that has a lot of funds and also has a passion. The latter, I think, suffer from focusing too much on strategy and not on operations. It's very important to kind of, be in the trenches. You really get a lot of first-hand understanding.
Correct.
So those type of entrepreneurs I would advise to not only focus on strategy, but get into operations and into the trenches. The entrepreneur who has a passion and not too many funds, I would say that you have to figure out what your billable hourly rate is. Because there've been times like I've been packing boxes and like being in the shop floor, and really sometimes just being behind the machine, figuring out why is this mark coming on the leather, is it the boot, is it the guide of the machine that's causing it and stuff like that. And for some time it's important to do that, but you have to realize that if you have 3 levels of management, the lower levels hourly rate is 100 rupees, second level is 200 rupees, third level is 300 rupees. Yours is probably 500 or 600 rupees. So if you're doing that from 3 to 4, you're costing your company 600 rupees.
Correct.
Sometimes you forget because you're like, this is my company, I have to do it all. You must know your hourly rate and figure out, the economics of hiring people to do certain things so you can do other things. And, figure out your opportunity cost.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So Saahil, thank you very much.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this.
This has been an absolutely incredible discussion with
Thank
you,
you.
and I must compliment you. You've got a very, very mature head on very young shoulders.
I appreciate it. Much love. Thank you so much.
I'm sure Tiger Marron will be a big brand, and I'm sure you will have lots of success.
With your blessings, thank you very much. I feel much more positive.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You podcast. Be sure to visit tbcy.in to join the conversation, access show notes, and discover fantastic bonus content. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Simply search for the Brand Called You. Thank you, and see you next week.